I'm so excited to be able to introduce today's guest speaker, Earle Rugg. Earle has many years of experience as a grant writer, really focused in on helping organizations be successful in their pursuit of federally available funds. You may recall from Amanda's updates on the financial landscape and the federal budget that grants, block grants, will be coming into place, and many of those grants will have the opportunity for technology to play a role. Particularly if you're looking to collect and analyze data, you have to have some approaches by which to do that, and technology is certainly an enabler of it. And so Earle is very uniquely positioned, and that he and his team are really focused in on helping those organizations who have a strong offering within the space of rural health and many other related areas in healthcare, inclusive of maternal health. So today we're going to be talking with Earle as he shares with us a bit of insight into his experience, as well as what he anticipates as being some of the expectations that are going to come along with this increase in budget that's coming to market. So without further ado, I'm going to ask for Earle, if you would please, to share your video and come on screen with us. So why don't we get started? Begin to tell us a little bit about yourself and the area of focus and expertise of your team.
Well, and it's really, it's not a focus on me, it's a focus on our team and the wonderful relationships that we've enjoyed over the number of years that we've been doing this. And actually, we kind of got into this business by accident, and started way back in 2003. We were working with a critical access hospital in central Vermont that had a problem with being able to bring patients into admissions, and they had a lot of, they had 4 or 5 different areas of admission to the hospital. And one day the CEO of the hospital, his mom, had some difficulties, and she ended up having to register 3 times, and he was pretty upset about that. So we were wondering, is there some way that technology can help that whole process? So long story short, we ended up applying for an AHRQ, AHRQ, Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality, for those folks that don't know, those letters. So we, long story short, we ended up applying for an AHRQ grant. We, again, really didn't know what we were doing. We were just kind of following the directions. And in that process, the head of the agency at that time was Dr. Carolyn Clancy. And Dr. Clancy said, that's a great idea, try to, in a rural setting, critical access hospital, try to tie together and create some interoperability among the various and disparate systems at the hospital. But she said, what we want you to do in addition to that is to see if you could reach outside your internal network at the hospital and see if you can bring in other partners. So we did that. We reached out to Valley Radiology, our radiology clinic. Oftentimes, critical access hospitals have to outsource their some of their services and whatnot, and that was the case with Mount Escutney Hospital in Vermont. And so we brought Valley Radiology into the mix, so to speak, and then our tertiary hospital was Dartmouth Hitchcock. So again, without knowing what we were doing, we created one of the first multi-state health information exchanges in the country. We won our first grant with AHRQ. We went on to win a second grant with AHRQ, and did, in fact, within 3 years, complete the project. And kind of the rest was history. And all of a sudden, I found myself on all kinds of rural health boards, meeting people like Mary Wakefield, and a whole bunch of other really well-known rural health folks and whatnot. Got quite an education. Our second grant was with Mary up in North Dakota at the University of North Dakota Medical School. Yeah, it was a HRSA Flex grant. So we went from AHRQ to HRSA. And HRSA Flex grants, if you're not aware of those, are basically generally statewide grants and whatnot. This one was for a specific reason and whatnot, but money being available every year for statewide projects, and oftentimes many states have enjoyed the Flex grants capability over the years. The next grant we pursued was down in North Carolina, and it was another HRSA grant that was focused on implementation of electronic health records, in a very rural mountain setting and whatnot. And again, fortunate we were able to win that grant. So we got a pretty good start. First 4 or 5 years of our existence, focusing on rural and whatnot. Kind of got away from that, thereafter for a number of years, and specifically working with health information exchanges, particularly the Office of National Coordinator, CMS, and we were able to win some good grants, particularly with the state of Missouri, and worked with their health information exchange in Missouri. But more recently, we've refocused with HRSA, and recently won an RCORP grant, which is focused on opioid issues and problems and whatnot, and trying to put together a better program to assist opioid patients, opioid addicted patients and whatnot. And so that's kind of brings us up to date in terms of, got a lot of projects we're working on and whatnot. Continue to focus on interoperability, but particularly at this point, more specifically around the opioid crisis and whatnot, and the whole intersection between COVID and opioid and whatnot. And so we've some good news was that over the last 2 months, we with that wonderful drug naloxone, actually we're able to, working with the local fire departments and whatnot in central Vermont, actually have saved 7 lives, which is what it's all about. So we're very proud of that.
And you should be. That's amazing, amazing progress, and very powerful. Earle, you guys have an amazing background as well, quite impressive. Let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that you see. Like, what do you see in terms of being some of the biggest hurdles or challenges in terms of pursuit of grant funding through these federal sources? Can you share us a little bit about that?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is obviously dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and providing the agency, exactly what they want, and that's sometimes cumbersome and whatnot in terms of grant writing. So it's very important to have a very experienced team of folks when you're pursuing grants, for folks that know what they're doing, and more importantly, as with everything in this world, a little bit of politics comes in. So it's a good idea to work with a team, like I said, that's experienced, has been involved in the whole grant management process, particularly working with a principal investigator who has has been successful in the past, and it's good to it's good to have good relationships, I guess is the best way to say it.
Let's just stop there for just a moment, pause, and dive into that a little bit, because oftentimes, people think, oh, well, we're going to tie ourselves to a big university, and then surely just through the work of or through affiliation, right, association with the university, that's going to be enough of what they need to actually get those awards. And I mean, you and I both know universities are amazing at what they do, but they often just go after grant after grant after grant, and then one sort of lands, and yours may not be that one. And what you're basically saying is that you should be going after that investigator, the star investigator is who you should be pursuing. Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, and we've worked with many hospitals and many medical schools and whatnot over the years, and it's and they do wonderful work, but it is sort of like a machine. They have to win the grants. They large overheads, and they like to keep their programs going and whatnot, and so that's required. And partnering with them is a good idea, but sometimes you get kicked to the curb a little bit, or not become as high a priority as you yourself would like. And so it's also and we kind of use the throwing the spaghetti against the wall approach, where we like to do work with everybody. So yes, definitely trying to work with hospitals and large medical centers is a good idea, but we also like to do our own thing, if you will. And we've been pretty lucky and successful over the years in terms of developing relationships. I sit on a number of boards, like the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved, as one example, or we also do work with the National Health Service Corps as another example. And then we work with folks that, rural health folks like Terry Hill up in Duluth. I'm throwing out a few names, but these are people that are, Neil Newberger is another one, who is head of the telehealth, American Telehealth, et cetera. Working with folks like that who are well-known, and whatnot, and you build your team around experienced people like that, and you develop the relationships, and then go for it, and pursue the grants that are out there. Good idea to be on grants.gov's listserv, so every day you're getting an exact idea of the grants that are coming out each day. Obviously, there's a lot of other Department of Commerce and Department of Defense and other Department of Education, et cetera, grants being noticed, but also there's a whole lot of grants focused on HHS, rural, and maternal, and whatnot. So that's a good idea to keep an eye on those grants and seeing what's available. You get an idea. They generally get noticed within with 60 or 90 days to be able to submit the grant, and that's helpful as well.
Thank you for that, those suggestions. So we've sort of, at least I have, and I'm curious to know if I'm just like making this up, but it seems like the criteria has changed a little bit, has opened up. Seems like there's more opportunity even for private sector to be able to participate in many of the grants that are coming out now. Can you talk a little bit about the dynamics of why that might be the case, and
Well, I
what does
think
that mean in terms of submissions? Yeah.
yeah, I think it's just there's a demand for it, and historically, um, you know, federal grants, particularly, as we have pretty much focused federal IT, health IT grants, have been not as plentiful as you would have liked over the last number of years. And many of the HRSA grants will skip a year or skip 2 years. So you don't have, necessarily the grants that you want coming out, when you want them. Plus, budgets have been a problem. If you recall, I mean, right now we're in a great time as far as money's being available, new grants coming out and whatnot, and so, and particularly around maternal health, as Amanda very nicely was able to articulate it and whatnot, and so there hasn't, those grants haven't been as plentiful over the last number of years, but they are becoming more so. So having said that, I think other organizations like PCORI and other private organizations, certainly private foundations, funding has grown with those, those private organizations over the last couple of years, and which is adding to the benefits of having more money available for projects.
Very nice. Let's talk specifically about HRSA a little bit. If you don't mind, share with us some of the changes that you have seen over the years, and sort of the evolution, if you will, of their expectation in regards to the submissions that they receive.
Yeah, it's as with everything, the HRSA is in the process, and has been over the last number of years, of making the whole process of grant submissions technically more efficient and whatnot. So changes have been made in the registration process. Historically, in order to pursue a HRSA grant, you needed to be a nonprofit, and you need to have a DUNS number. You needed to be able to register with the federal government because the grant is a contract, and so you needed to register with the contracting folks and whatnot. That sort of is evolved into what they call the SAM registration, and what that process is all about is that once the grant is awarded to you, with the SAM registration process, they have all of your banking information and whatnot. So what happens is, as soon as the award comes out, usually within 2 weeks or a month or so, they're able to make the first payment. Some grants are yearly grants. Some grants are some grants are 2-year grants. Some grants are 3-year grants. And so by having your banking information in advance, they're able to wire the funds right into your the first quarterly payment. They're able to wire the funds right directly into your bank account. So for those reasons, there's been a lot of changes, like I say, technical changes and whatnot. It also has made the process, I can remember years ago, it was all paper, and you'd fill out the grant application, the 424 application, and you send it in, and you send it overnight and this and that. But over time, through grants.gov and the registration with grants.gov, you were able to submit the 424 electronically. And now that system is evolving even more. Beginning the 24th of this month in June, the HRSA is getting away from the grants.gov submission process and into e-handbooks, their proprietary system at HRSA. So um, after June the 24th, and the specific to you folks, the infant and maternal health grant that's due in September. It's 22-001. And that will no longer be, you will no longer be able to submit that via grants.gov. You're going to have to do it by the electronic handbook method. So folks, and we haven't, because you can't submit them until after the 24th of June, we haven't actually submitted under that process yet. So I suspect, as we've seen in every other improvement, so to speak, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to work out the bugs in the system. So if folks are going to go after that grant and pursue and whatnot, I would certainly recommend they do it early and start the electronic handbook process early as they can, and get it submitted as quickly as they can, because it might very well be that the application gets kicked back for one technical reason or another. And so that's, probably, when you talk about issues and problems and whatnot, submitting grants and getting them kicked back to you because of technical issues and whatnot is an issue, is a problem and whatnot. And so all the more reason why you want to be ahead of the game and get it submitted early.
I love it. And thank you for bringing to our attention those important dates, right? June the 24th as being a major transition date is something super important that folks should be marking on their calendars and
Yes.
start to get themselves trained up on, so that they are able to go through that process very seamlessly. Just two quick additional questions for you. And then we'll be opening it up to to everyone. So attendees, we'd love for you to join in and ask questions. The first one, Earle, is in relation to maternal health as a theme, right? We're
Yes.
focusing obviously on
Yes.
the application of digital technology in the maternal health space. There's so many grant opportunities that are out there in the tech space in general. I often think about some of the rural health grants that are available, but that may not specifically state any particular therapeutic area or subspecialty like maternal health. What are your thoughts and recommendation to those who are listening in on today's program about, you know, the likelihood and the appropriateness of them submitting a technology recommendation that whose underlying area of focus being maternal health?
I would definitely recommend that you pursue as many grants as you can. Um, they are time consuming in terms of putting them together, and it does cost a little bit to get them submitted. Um, you want to get, particularly if it's the first time that you're pursuing, a grant, and even more importantly, pursuing a technology grant. You really want to make sure that you put a team together that's well known, that's won grants in the past, so that the agency has confidence, because it's like any other business. They're going to invest their grant funds in the people that have already been successful. So sometimes it takes, you have a presence of mind that it's important to you want the agency to know you, know who you are and whatnot. And sometimes it takes one or two submissions before you win your first grant. So that's why I say it really makes a lot of sense to make as many submissions in a year as you possibly can, certainly at the beginning. Highly recommend that.
Excellent. That's a phenomenal recommendation. And one final one that we love to have the opportunity to ask is it's in regards to resources and tools. If there were one resource that you just find absolutely invaluable for those who are, maybe stepping into grant writing for the first time, or you know, for whom I have been in this space, but maybe just haven't had the level of attraction and success that they'd like to have, what would that resource be?
Well, from our perspective, the way we submit grants is you have the the announcement that comes out and all the rules and regulations and whatnot. I would, I would become very, very familiar with what that, with that notice and whatnot, and begin building your application as soon as you can, and then create a rapport with the grant officer that is is in charge of this particular grant. Because oftentimes what we find is that what's between in the four corners of the grant rules and regulations and announcements and whatnot, it oftentimes does not reflect all of the requirements that the agency is looking for. So that's number one. Number two, there are a lot of, you can go online and obtain information on how to write grants and this and that, and that's good. But you really want to connect with somebody, particularly somebody that's an experienced principal investigator and whatnot, that's been through the process, been through and whatnot. You can cut a lot of corners and save a lot of your time and money by reaching out and getting some good advice.
Absolutely love it. Make the grant official your friend.
Yes.
And again, reiterating, seeking out those principal investigators who have the experience of been being where you want to be before. Very good.
Yes.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. We're going to now invite folks to come on with their video. It's good to see some old faces and names and some new ones here today. Anyone have any questions that they'd like to ask of Earle?
Let me make a comment, and maybe that's
Yeah.
the question will be coming forth. As Leslie was talking about and giving the sort of the history of the next HIMSS conference and whatnot. By the way, HIMSS, it's a great organization that as far as electronics and technology and whatnot, it's a great organization, and I highly recommend going to HIMSS conferences, particularly this one coming up and whatnot. You meet a lot of people, and you learn a lot, and et cetera. So, but she was talking about specifically about the whole issue around health equity,
Mhm.
and trying to find ways to help disparities among particularly the underserved, medically underserved and whatnot. When we submit a grant application, we always submit it on behalf of an organization or a group of folks that are among the underserved and whatnot. Because we strongly believe in assisting and providing better quality healthcare to the underserved, but it's also near and dear to most folks' heart to try to help folks that are underserved and whatnot. So we always use that patient population, in our grant application. So so coming up with new ways, innovative ways to assist with health equity, with resolving health disparity issues and problems, and the whole issue of bringing in the various components of social determinants of health and the various other focuses and functions and whatnot that occur is extremely important.
Excellent. I love it. That's very prudent and important for folks to recognize. You know, because we, again, our area of focus being with digital health, it makes me think to the role of device manufacturers. Thank you, Marty, for putting your video on for us today. And I hope you don't mind that I point out that you represent Philips, and they're a great example of the many organizations, manufacturers that are out there that have incredible technologies in this space and are oftentimes wanting to, do their part in helping to demonstrate the effectiveness and the efficacy of applying technology. What would you say to those in that particular realm, right? A lot of wearable manufacturers with new technology, et cetera, as well, who are out there, or what might you recommend to them as they are seeking ways to participate in grants? Any suggestions for them?
Yes, and we've actually done that. We've actually partnered with different vendors, if you will, of technology and whatnot, particularly that are looking to expand their markets, and provide for their clientele, et cetera. Obviously, the vendor themselves would not be the direct submitter, particularly if you're talking about AHRQ or HRSA and whatnot, because they only provide grants to nonprofits by and large. Every once in a while, you get a grant where for-profit companies are included in one of them, but mostly they're the nonprofits, and the agencies generally like to provide money to nonprofits. But you can partner, and the vendor can become part of the application, even though the lead might be a critical access hospital or community health center, or fairly, FQHC or whatnot. They would be the lead in the grant. The vendor would be a partner in the grant and in providing benefits and whatnot. So we oftentimes do partner that way.
And so do we. I would echo that. And Fran, thanks for sort of great minds think alike. I was taking myself off mute as you were asking my view. That's exactly how we work. We partner in that kind of when it comes to applying for grants. And sometimes we're a support partner behind the scenes. So it depends on the situation, but oftentimes we're called upon for, I'll call it support letters that back up, that lend credence to a grant, that kind of thing. So we like reviewing. Usually we rope in, our research teams and really fully vet these things before we, provide support, so that we know this is something that we're fully behind. But I would encourage other manufacturers to do the same if they're not already doing that, whether it's overt support or behind the scenes. Also, since you mentioned HIMSS, and I'm imagining a number of other people that are on the call here or have a booth or are participating in HIMSS, it might make sense, because I think one of the beauties of the Match Coalition is that there's power in numbers, right? We're all in this together and we are sharing common objectives. Maybe it's worth taking a poll after the meeting. Who's at HIMSS? What are you communicating regarding maternal health care? And maybe we can have sort of, the match guide to what's going on at HIMSS, encouraging, hey, check out these displays or that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and it's very top on our list right now as we're getting ready for that event. I cannot believe we are out of time. I just looked at the clock and I'm like, holy smokes, it's already 3 after 9. The time went by incredibly fast. You can see that we were just all enthralled by the amazing insights in your experience. Earle, I presume that if anyone would like to reach out to you, that you are open and available to them. Is that a fair assumption?
Yes, and if I can be helpful in any way, be happy to do that.
Thank you so much. And I realized that we didn't leave time in the, Jen, I apologize. We didn't leave time for folks to make their announcements. If there's a pressing announcement that you'd like to make, we'll leave it open for just a minute here and allow those to do that. Otherwise, you can email us your updates and we can also circulate that as part of the post-meeting notes. Anything that anyone would like to share before we go? All right. Well, guys, thank you so much. Thank you again, Earl. It was
Thank you,
phenomenal. We
Fran,
greatly
and
appreciate you.
thank you for all of your folks at Match and your whole audience.
Absolutely. Everybody have a wonderful rest of the day and a lovely week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.